1 year ago, I stole Incorrect MTG Quotes idea. Great channel, by the way, definitely check them out. Also, they gave me permission, but I wanted a strong opener. Anyway, I used their idea of trying to come up with an arbitrary number of Magic fan theories. By some miracle, I just hit theory 150, so that would be a cool idea to turn them into a video, because there are more followers here, and bigger response numbers make my caveman brain feel good. The entire thread is linked below, but I thought I would expand on the strongest 50. I cut out the more overtly comedic ones, the ones that are actually right without me noticing, some common ones that practically everyone knows, and all the totally correct predictions I made because I'm the smartest man who ever lived. And I only make safe bets. Now, fan theories being passed as established canon is a pet peeve of mine, and as seen in my hoaxes and misconceptions video, Magic already has plenty of that happening. So keep in mind that everything here is, to the best of my knowledge, unofficial, but still fun to discuss and speculate on. As always, liking, commenting, and subscribing helps the channel greatly. 1. A small subset of Ravnikins believe that the War of the Spark was an inside job by Niv-Mizzet to gain power. Intelligent. Dragons have been virtually extinct on the plane for ages, then one suddenly shows up and very publicly kills Niv, a known dragon cloner, only for Niv to miraculously come back and then get put in charge. From the average Ravnikin perspective, Niv orchestrating it makes way more sense than some interdimensional dark god showing up. Dragonfire doesn't melt Mizium beams. 2. Hell is a non-traditional plane with mysterious connections to many different worlds. This is why Hell exists as a concept across the multiverse. Through this, very powerful demons can speak to each other across the multiverse. This is why Leanna didn't find it odd that demons on 4 different planes entered into a business agreement together. 3. Tybalt is constantly mistaken for an Azra and he hates it. 4. Davriel Kane is ace. We know that he never makes a demonic deal that he has a chance of losing. One contract gives a demon his soul when he dies, but he already died before they met. Another requires solving an impossible riddle. His deal with Miss Highwater is the apparent exception. She acquires his soul if she is able to seduce him. Kane seems confident that this won't happen, despite lacking an obvious loophole like with the other contracts. Him being ace could explain his confidence that a shapeshifter who can be any species, sex, or appearance could never seduce him. 5. Speaking of Davriel, for a small fee, he probably could have wrangled Lyanna out of her contract with much less effort and much fewer dead Gideons than it took her. 6. Being beat by Domri shook Borborygmus to his core, though he could never admit that to anyone. Honestly, I'm surprised that the Gruul accepted him back so readily. 7. Relatedly, Ilharg appearing but not really doing anything led to a crisis of faith among some of the Gruul. 8. The majority of Magic characters are probably illiterate. It depends on the plane, obviously, but in 1820, only 12% of the Earth population was literate, and most planes in Magic have development at or behind that of the 19th century. Garrick, Gideon, Vraska, there's a good chance that none of them can read, especially Gideon. Donate now to end Planeswalker illiteracy. 9.
Asmarana Mardikudastini Kaldukar
Wrote the Job Cooking in the Magic Multiverse. Not sure who wrote the Naked Lunch, though. 10. There's a higher power that guides Planeswalkers on their first trip, or they possess a subconscious ability to guide themselves. More often than not, a Planeswalker's first walk takes them somewhere relevant to their personality or interests. For example, Domri to Naya, Sarkhan to Jund, and Rao to Kaladesh. Even a less obvious example like Watley took her almost directly to Saheeli. 11. Tybalt would have worked for Bolas if asked, but Bolas very deliberately did not ask. 12. Tamio really wants to learn more about Mirrodin's moons, as moons are her subject of interest, and Mirrodin's may be the most unique in the multiverse. She could have learned about them from Ajani, who could have learned about them from Elspeth. 13. Tamio would also be very interested in Dominaria's Mist and Null moons, the latter of which was an Ordthron base that was involved in the defeat of Yawgmoth. Conversely, she probably hates Kaldheim, which has no moon. 14. Factions like Ravnica's Guild or Strixhaven's colleges probably aren't as 100% species segregated as the cards often imply. Some races probably exist in unexpected guilds, but aren't portrayed as cards because of tribal expectations, draft reasons, etc. 15. Sorin introduced an invasive subspecies of vampirism to Tarkir, and the native vampires resent him for it. Idiot. 16. There are members of the Dimir who genuinely believe that they are nothing more than a library. We know that the guild manipulates its own members as much as anyone else, so I wouldn't be surprised if there are some couriers truly in the dark out there. 17. The Chupacabras of Ixalan are related to the vampires and/or Alcazat, the bat god, having a name that literally means goatsucker because of their blood-sucking habits. I know that I mentioned this before, but I will literally never give it up. 18. Eminato, Duretti, and Estrid were smart/strong-willed enough to reject the beacon's call and avoid the War of the Spark. Rin was probably established enough to reject the calling, or maybe she was between treefolk and couldn't planeswalk. 19. Koth of the Hammer was specifically too committed to Mirrodin to heed it. 20. Bolus didn't recruit Ashiok because they were too much of a wild card. It's possible that he actively repelled them, which is why they were never seen on Ravnica. If not, they still seem mentally in control enough to ignore the call. 21. On the flip side, Dalvril technically had the mental strength to ignore the beacon, but interrupted his napping, so he went to shut it off. 22. I don't care if the official ruling was that Heartworn Redemption was imaginary, it's real in my heart. 23. Pramikon is either the cause of, or a byproduct of, Tervada's madness-inducing broken sky. 24. Ecolor was never Eldrazified, despite being ancient and worn out, because of its extremely powerful magical concealment and physical distance from everything else in the multiverse. 25. Jared's son, Mixzil, is mixed species, leading him to reject his father's speciesism and not seek revenge against Vraska. 26. Testenda gained the power to traverse planes at the end of Children of the Nameless. I don't have a powerful argument for this, it just seems more interesting. 27. Clathith either had a love aspect to her personality that went unexamined in Beyond Death, or a green-red love god existed on Theros separate from her. 28. The unluckiest planeswalker participated in the War of the Spark. He got into lots of shenanigans, but ultimately survived, as his cards indicate he has a knack for getting out of seemingly life-threatening situations. I actually suggested this to Mark Rosewater once, and he agreed with me. 29. Shordred was the easiest praetor for Eilish Norn to overpower, because her position was never secure. As one of 7 constantly fighting Steel Thanes, Shordred was precariously situated over an organization with no loyalty to her. 30. Sharam's mate, Crucius, is alive, having planeswalked away from Alara, and stayed away for unknown reasons. As evidenced with Edgar, when Magic has an ambiguous situation like this, they tend to go with the option that leaves the most story potential by revealing the character to be alive. 31. We occasionally see planeswalkers visit a plane where their species doesn't exist. For example, Johnny had to disguise himself on Kaladesh, and Ingrath was mistaken for a demon on Ixalan. Prior to the War of the Spark, I say that Ravnican locals assume that any planeswalker visitors of a non-native species were the results of a simic experiment. 32. Humans and various other prolific species originated on a single plane, maybe Dominaria, and migrated to different worlds long ago when the boundaries between planes were much weaker. There was a lot of focus on the core having one specific plane of origin, but most other species aren't considered from this perspective. I guess the other option is an human. 33. Jared discriminated against the Gorgons of the Gorgari partially in a poorly thought out, unjustified attempt to prevent Ludmilla, the last remaining sister of Stone Death, from returning to power. 34. A lot of people interpret the Essence symbiote flavor text as saying that the mutations are very new to Ikoria. I personally read it as saying that they recently increased in intensity, but have been around in some form for a long time. 35. Urza isn't shown wearing glasses in a single one of his depictions. Outside, inside, old, young, reading. I can only assume that he owns a pair of non-prescription glasses to make himself look smarter. Or he's so afraid of looking weak that he never wears the glasses that he needs. 36. Elharg is a religious evolution of the idea of the Nephilim, or vice versa, being an old wild god prophesized to upend Ravnica. 37. Some planes in Magic have a unique physical structure to represent their influence. For example, Phyrexia has 9 levels and Theros is flat. I think that Ixalan is also flat. Firing off the edge being a serious concern would be a nod to the mostly inaccurate perceptions about the age of exploration that inspired the set. 38. Amonkhet is a disk floating in an ocean, representing the belief of the ancient Egyptians. 39. Kaladesh is a system of wheels. This follows ancient Indian thought and also fits in quite well with Kaladesh's mechanical theme. 40. The new Vorinclex is great in a deck full of poison and -1/-1 counters. However, he's also great against a deck full of poison and -1/-1 counters. Perhaps this hints at a Phyrexian civil war in the future. 41. Finax, a human who escaped the underworld and became a god, and Clathith, the god of Narcs, are bitter rivals. Personally, I think they should bond over their similar fashion choices of horns and robes that are somehow both inconveniently large and revealing at the same time. 42. Goblin lore takes place in Strixhaven, as it features a document that gives information on goblins from multiple planes. The goblin in the card doesn't look too different from this Strixhaven one. 43. Spreading Insurrection represents the briefly mentioned theocratic coup attempt of the Sin Empire's past. 44. I think the Sin Gears are still out there. They're regularly reprinted/referenced, and the story ended on such a cliffhanger. 45. Speaking of characters I think are still out there, the most recent guide to the Gorgari devoted like a third of the text to stressing that Savagthir is probably not dead. So I think his essence is still out there. At the very least, I think he'll get a real card someday. 46. The Infinite Consortium approached Dak, either rejected them because he's too independent, or messed up his first gig and got fired. 47. It's Imricor sending out the calling in the new insectile aberration. 48. All the Ixalan dinosaurs, with unexplained real-world scientific names, were named by someone from Torazone, which has Greco-Roman elements. 49. Imricor quickly gained worshippers on Innistrad because there were already many cults centered on visually similar Kraken. They saw her as a culmination of their faith. 50. Finally, there was some mass extinction event on Ravnica between the Ravnica cycle of books and the first Black Bear. It killed off all orcs, harpies, half-demons, elffolk, and other weird creatures that we never see on the cards. Sign of the Wild's Fabertext supports this. The other option is that the author of that book treated Ravnica like a generic fantasy world, and no editor read it closely enough to notice, but that can't be the case, right? Another extinction event between the first two blocks killed a bunch of the creatures we only saw on that first visit. Thank you for watching. The link to the complete thread is below if you want to like it to further me on my Sisyphusian quest. Also, let me know your theories in the comments. If this video does well, I'll make a sequel on them.